Husband took his coworker on our anniversary trip while I stayed home to care for my sick mom. I served him divorce papers at dinner, and now he's losing everything. I'm in a situation I never imagined I'd find myself in. Hi, I'm Ava, 27, and I've been married to John, 28, for 3 years. We met in college while I was studying education, and he was working on his law degree. Our romance was complicated but beautiful, culminating in a wonderful wedding and a joyful start to our life together. We were the couple everyone envied, always laughing, supporting each other, and dreaming about our future. However, over the past year, things have shifted. John has become increasingly absorbed in his job at a prestigious law firm. I admire his drive, but lately, it feels like he's more committed to his work than to our marriage. At first, I tried to be understanding. I knew the legal world was demanding, so I made excuses for his late nights, missed dinners, and weekends spent at the office. I thought it was just a phase and that we'd emerge stronger. I even planned a special vacation for our anniversary, hoping it would help us reconnect. About 6 months ago, he started mentioning a new hire at his firm, Molly. She's 25, ambitious, and he described her as a breath of fresh air. Initially, I brushed it off. I've never been the jealous type and trusted him completely. But as time passed, John seemed to spend more time at work and with her. He casually dropped her name into our conversations. Molly thinks we should approach this case differently, or Molly made a great point in the meeting. I figured he was just excited about work, but then I noticed changes in him. He dressed better, started hitting the gym more, and was glued to his phone even when we were together. When I asked, he'd say it was just work stuff. One day I jokingly asked if I should be worried about Molly. He laughed it off, but something inside me felt uneasy. Our relationship began to deteriorate, dates became rare, and our conversations turned robotic, revolving around bills and schedules. The spark was gone and intimacy was non-existent. Every time I tried to address it, he brushed me off, claiming he was just stressed. As weeks went by, John became more distant. He worked late more often, and when he was home, he was distracted. I knew something was wrong, but he insisted everything was fine. Deep down, I sensed a shift. And then there was Molly, her bubbly personality, which apparently made John's work life so much easier. Whenever he mentioned her, he had this look that made my stomach churn. The final straw came when he missed our date night for a work event with her. I tried to talk to him, but he insisted I was imagining things, that she was just a colleague. I finally confronted him, asking if something was going on between them. His shocked response made me question everything. "Are you serious? Molly is just a friend. You're being paranoid." I wanted to believe him, but there were too many red flags. So, I thought a romantic getaway for our anniversary would help us reconnect. Just the two of us, no distractions. But then my world came crashing down. My mom fell seriously ill and was hospitalized. I was devastated, but I told John he should still go on the trip. It might do him good to relax while I stayed back to care for my mom. He was hesitant, but eventually agreed. I thought it would be a chance for him to clear his head, and we could talk about everything when he got back. The first couple of days went as usual with our texts and FaceTime calls, but then things changed. His replies became short and vague, and he took hours to respond. I brushed it off, thinking he was just trying to unwind. Then, a friend of mine, vacationing in the same area, sent me a picture of John at the restaurant we had reserved for our anniversary, with Molly. I was crushed. While I was home, worried sick about my mom, he was enjoying our romantic getaway with her. Since he's been back, I haven't confronted him. I'm at a loss for words. Part of me wants to scream, throw his things out, and file for divorce, but another part wonders if I'm overreacting. I haven't told anyone besides my best friend, who insists I need to leave him. After days of stewing in my emotions, I know I need to make a decision soon. I'm finally ready to confront John. I rehearsed what I would say countless times, imagining every possible reaction. Would he apologize? Deny everything, or worse, gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting? The anxiety was eating me alive, and I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. I picked a Saturday evening when we were both home because I wanted to address this face-to-face. I wasn't going to let him dodge the conversation over text. When I walked in, he was on the couch, glued to his phone as usual. I sat down across from him and said, "John, we need to talk." He looked up, surprised by the seriousness in my voice. "What's up?" he asked. Taking a deep breath, I jumped in. "I know about Molly. I know you took her on the anniversary trip." His face went pale for a moment. He looked like he might deny it, but then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Ava, it's not what you think." I scoffed. "Really? Because what I think is that you took your work wife on a romantic getaway that was meant for us." He shook his head, insisting, "It wasn't romantic. She was having a hard time at work, and I thought it would be nice for her to get away too." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you decided to play hero and take her on our trip. Did you even consider how that would look or how I would feel?" He defended himself, saying he didn't plan it that way and that I told him to go. I didn't want to cancel, and it just happened. "Just happened? Is that what you call it?" I shot back. "Is that what you call holding hands in the picture my friend sent me?" He stared at me, at a complete loss for words, knowing he was caught. After our confrontation, John left the house, saying he needed time to think. That was fine with me. I needed time to process the betrayal. It felt like a slap in the face, and the more I sat with it, the angrier I became. If he wanted Molly, he could have her. But I wasn't going to let him make this easy for me. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I didn't mention it to John yet, but I knew I had to prepare for the worst. I refused to be one of those women who hung around hoping their husband would change after such a blatant betrayal. I needed to protect myself. A few days later, I asked John to meet me for dinner at a nice restaurant, hoping that a public setting would keep things calm. He arrived looking nervous, probably expecting another argument. But I was calm. I had already made up my mind. Once we were seated and had ordered, I slid a manila envelope across the table toward him. "What's this?" he asked. "Divorce papers," I said flatly. "I've already spoken to a lawyer." John's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. "Ava, are you serious? You're going to throw away our marriage over one mistake?" I nearly laughed. "You've been emotionally checked out for months, John, and then you took her on our anniversary trip. I don't know how you define mistake, but that's not something I can forgive." He glanced around the restaurant, probably hoping nobody was listening, but I didn't care. "Ava, please, let's just talk about this. You can't seriously want a divorce." I replied, "I didn't want this, but you've given me no choice. I won't be the second option in my own marriage." That night, John called me repeatedly, but I didn't answer. I was done talking. He'd made his choice, and now I was making mine. I called my best friend, who came over with wine and ice cream. We spent the night going over every detail of the confrontation. By the time John got home, I had locked the bedroom door and fallen asleep. I could hear him pacing in the hallway, probably debating whether or not to knock, but he didn't. I think he realized it was too late for that. Since then, things have been tense. John is still in the house, but we barely speak. He keeps trying to apologize, claiming he made a mistake and doesn't want to lose me, but honestly, I'm not sure I care anymore. It's been 2 weeks since I handed John the divorce papers at the restaurant. Part of me feels like I've taken back control, but another part is devastated by how quickly everything has unraveled. John still acts like nothing happened, and the atmosphere is incredibly awkward. When we do talk, it's tense. He's either trying to guilt-trip me into taking him back or sulking like a child. I've made it clear that this is what I want, but I don't think he believes me yet. I met with my lawyer again to start the official process. We discussed dividing our assets, which hasn't been easy. Thankfully, we don't have kids, but we do have a house, 2 cars, and joint savings. John keeps dragging it out, saying he wants to make things right and that we don't need lawyers. As I reviewed our finances, I discovered some troubling withdrawals and expenses I didn't recognize. It turns out he's been paying for Molly's dinners, trips, and even her rent on a few occasions, essentially funding her lifestyle while claiming they were just friends. I was livid, but it just confirmed what I already suspected. What's even more frustrating is that now that I've served him with divorce papers, John is trying to win me back. He's pulling out all the stops: flowers, love letters, and promises to be better. But at this point, I'm not sure I can trust anything he says. I'm sorry to hear you're going through such a tough time. It sounds incredibly painful. A few days ago, John sat me down to tell me he cut off contact with Molly, insisting she meant nothing to him. He claimed he only realized how much he loves me after I handed him the divorce papers, and I actually saw him cry for the first time. While that might have stirred some feelings in me, I couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of betrayal. This isn't just about Molly. It's about months of neglect, lies, and feeling like a ghost in my own marriage. I told him I couldn't forgive him and still wanted the divorce. He looked heartbroken, but I stood my ground. He suggested counseling, but honestly, I think we're way past that. The fallout has spread beyond us. Our families are now involved, making everything even messier. My parents are furious with John. They were already concerned about how distant he had become. But this situation pushed them over the edge. My mom has been checking in on me constantly and even told John he's not welcome at family events anymore. I didn't expect her to react so strongly, but I appreciate her support. John's family is another story. His mom called me last week, begging me to reconsider. She insisted that every marriage has rough patches and implied that I was overreacting. I couldn't believe it and told her that if she wanted to support her cheating son, she was welcome to do so, but I wasn't going to be guilted into staying in a broken marriage. As for Molly, news of their affair has spread at John's law firm, and it's causing quite a stir. Some of his colleagues have reached out to express their shock, and apparently, Molly isn't very popular at the office. Rumors of her being too close to other male coworkers are circulating. Since the news broke, I've heard that she's been avoiding the office. John seems to be backing off from her, likely realizing the mess he's created, but it doesn't look like he's ready to let go entirely. There hasn't been a dramatic breakup, but I can tell he's struggling with what to do next. I've started looking for a new place. Living in this house, filled with memories of happier times, feels suffocating. Every corner reminds me of the lies and broken promises. Meanwhile, John seems to be falling apart. Though he still goes to work, he's clearly not the same person. Friends have said he's been distant and distracted, and his performance at the firm is suffering. I don't take any pleasure in his struggles, but I'm not surprised. Living a double life always catches up to you. It's clear to me now that his relationship with Molly wasn't worth the price he's paying, but it's too late for us. He's tried to reach out a few more times, but I've remained firm in my decision. I deserve better. Update. It's been 3 months since I served John with divorce papers, and things have only gotten more complicated. I thought moving on would be easier, but it feels like a giant mess. Initially, I thought the divorce process would be straightforward, no kids and simple asset division. But John has made it difficult. After his attempts to win me back failed, he started contesting everything: the house, the cars, even our joint savings. His lawyer is a nightmare, and John seems to think I'm being unreasonable. What really pushed me over the edge was his claim that the house should belong to him because he's the primary breadwinner, ignoring my contributions and the sacrifices I made for our marriage. His entitlement is infuriating. Thankfully, my lawyer has been amazing. She's helping me gather evidence of John's infidelity, which we're using to ensure a fair asset division. I also discovered that John has been funneling money into a secret account he claims is for work expenses, so we're digging into that as well. Mediation has been a disaster. John still hopes I'll back down, but I refuse to let him bully me out of what I deserve. Every meeting feels like a battlefield, and I can see his frustration when he realizes I'm not budging. Meanwhile, the news of his affair has spread at his law firm, creating tension among his colleagues. Some are questioning his judgment, especially with Molly's reputation for getting too close to male coworkers. John's bosses aren't happy either. Clients have started asking if his personal life is impacting his work. John's work has been seriously affected, and it's not looking good for the firm. There are even whispers that his job could be at risk if things escalate further. He might face professional consequences he never anticipated. It's kind of ironic. He sacrificed his marriage for Molly, and now he could end up losing his career too. As for Molly, she's already jumped ship. I heard she transferred to another firm after the gossip about their relationship became unbearable. I guess she didn't want to deal with any fallout either. I'm not sure what's happening between her and John now, but from what I gather, their relationship isn't the fairy tale he envisioned. While John's world is falling apart, I've been focused on rebuilding my own. About a month ago, I moved out of our house and found a small apartment in the city. Adjusting to life on my own has been strange, but, in a way, liberating. I no longer feel like I'm walking on eggshells, and having my own space has allowed me to concentrate on myself for the first time in ages. That said, it hasn't been an easy ride emotionally. Some days, I still feel like a wreck. I thought I'd be further along in my healing process by now, but sometimes the betrayal hits me out of nowhere, and I just break down. I'm trying to push through it, going to therapy, journaling, leaning on friends, but I won't lie. It's been tougher than I expected. What's really shaken me is John's family. After months of silence, his mother reached out to me again. She was polite, but I could sense her struggle. She told me John was falling apart and asked if I'd consider talking to him again, even just to provide him with some closure. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me felt sympathy for her, but another part was furious that she would even ask me to do that after everything her son put me through.